Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And after, not as long as a break as our last one, we're back after like a week in between. How are you doing, my friend? You just got on.
Good. Yeah, yeah. I've been doing well. My time the last couple of days has been occupied with our top story today on the show. So we'll get into that. I dressed the part, a little in costume related to that, if
You
that
you
makes sense.
did.
So,
I actually I sort of did as well because another topic we're going to delve in
mhm.
today has to do with the All-Star game and one incredible young starting pitcher and just that game in general. So I kind of also did as well. I had a feeling that you were going to dress in something BGS or something pertaining to college football or a mix. I didn't
Yeah,
know if you were going to pull out
yeah.
some Ohio State gear or something else or whatever. But
I actually almost wore my Justin Fields jersey. I almost wore that instead. Yeah.
That's cool. You wore it before on the show, but I love that hat you have on, dude. The throwback Bowling Green Falcon hat.
Yeah,
That's really nice.
yeah,
That trucker hat.
yeah.
Love that.
I love it. Yeah, it's cool.
But this is today's show is definitely more pop culture heavy. If you count our first story, we're gonna just dive into our first impressions. College football 25 from EA Sports dropped on Monday at 4 p.m. if you have special access for at least Casen and I this week. If you didn't have open access, it's going to be this Friday. But I think the majority of people who would take in our show are either going to get this or already have been playing it. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to get into some All-Star game talk, and then we're going to dive into a number of trailers and, quite frankly, pop culture topics that have come up in the last week since our last show. We're going to dive into a couple of teaser trailers that came out, Marvel
Yep.
oriented, of course. And we're going to wrap up the Acolyte to end the show today. And it, reviewing one series and two episodes is healthy for me. I'll just put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
But we're going to dive into College Football 25, the new A Sports video game that just dropped after an 11-year hiatus, of which we've talked your ears off about it. You don't have to have played it, because if you're just a college football fan, I think you really will appreciate our conversation on it. But Case, and I had a joke. I said to a friend of the show, Nate, like a couple of nights ago when we were first playing it, where I said, I'm gonna really be in that situation where every waking moment I'm gonna be in a professional setting or at work or doing something, and I really am just gonna be thinking at all times in the back of my mind, man, I wish I was at home playing College Football 25 right now. Just at
Yeah.
all times.
Yeah.
That's just
Yeah.
my setting. That's just my default setting right now, where my brain is. I'm not just like, man, like driving home. I was like, man, I wish I could just play college football right now. I'm thinking it now while we're recording the show.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like to be truthfully honest, like doing a show this week was sort of like it was it was like a well, I want to do a show, but also at the same time, that's valuable time I could be playing college football 25. Like,
it's the game has been so joyful for Kason and I that literally the recording of today's episode is a bit of a chore. So consider yourselves lucky. I guess it is the best way to put it out there. If it's not too obvious, Case and I have very much been enjoying this game. I just kind of wanted to have some time here to gush about all the positives and, if any, negatives, the conversation around the game. But it is truly one of those situations, as I've described to some people in my family and to my friends and others who really aren't as familiar with sports video games, that there are rare moments when something that has all the hype in the world behind it actually living up to that hype, and in ways that you didn't necessarily expect. Even if you don't necessarily think that it exceeds the hype. Personally, for me, this game exceeds the hype for its initial launch. Like, it's in a better state than even really like. The level of polish here is very, very, very good. All aspects of the game. But I think that's why I think, as a sports and video game fan and a longtime sports gamer in my life, just as a sports fan, since I was a young kid, it's like this feels like a moment in time. This feels like
oh
a
yeah.
moment where it's like, wow, like I'll remember this launch when we're long to the point where this is a reskinned game every year. I mean, do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, and I think I think at this point though, like I think that the you know, I'm curious to see what they do moving forward, because like I wasn't necessarily there like in the, you know, the peak days, you know, going from like NCAA 10 to 11 to
Yeah, this is
12 to
brand new
2.
for you. This is brand new.
So
Yeah.
I just don't know like how like how did that not feel reskinned every year like Madden does? Like did it, or was, because I know there were a couple different modes they added depending on the years and stuff, but I mean, maybe hopefully next year they'll reintegrate Road to Glory in like high schools again. They'll have you like start in high school again.
Yeah,
Like
I
that would
mean,
be cool.
to
Um,
answer your initial question, in that era, like that 2000 to 2010 era, not just for Madden but mainly NCAA as well, that was the era where they really were trying to put out new features per season. So I mean, you had the for Madden, for example, you had like the QB vision thing one year. It was all about the it was all about the hit stick, or they really focused on this thing. Even as late as 2016 Madden, it was all about the ball hawk, you know,
mhm.
the war in the air, so to speak. That was probably my last really favorite Madden game, and it was a next gen, now last gen, but next gen as compares to what I was talking about compared to then. But it felt new per year because that was back in a day when EA Sports was genuinely trying to outdo themselves every single year. I think definitely they lost that in the post NCAA kind of going away days, because they have essentially, I know they have a monopoly on both areas, but they were really trying to innovate and go forward, and I think they really lost that in the later years with Madden, especially these last few years. And I think part of that is by design, part of that is by them not
Yeah.
really seeming to care too much, because they have their base that's going to buy Madden every year anyway, because it's like the only football polished video game. But now that it's not, and granted, they still have the hold over, you know, college football as well. The thing about this is the bones here of this game are so well polished and good. I mean, we're talking, I can tell this took 5, 6 years to make, because
Hmm.
everything feels great. The actual football, everything else. I don't want to get off on a tangent on different features yet, just to kind of stick here. It felt like a time of major innovation when they went year to year in the past. I can't sit here and guarantee that that's going to feel that way going forward. But again, as I've said this whole time, of people comparing it to Madden, I love that we now live in a world again where this exists. Would you rather it not exist? I mean, would you rather us go back to when we didn't have a football video game? Like,
Yeah.
which is why I'm willing to kind of vet that criticism when we come to it. This is the initial launch of what, let's face it, is a brand new franchise. I mean, everyone keeps calling it NCAA 25. It's not really NCAA 25. It's college football 25. It's a brand new game. Um, Feel wise, it even feels to me better than the old NCAA games did at the very end. But I'll get into that at another time, but later on. But yeah,
Yeah, no, I mean, I know we I think I mentioned it before too, but I definitely think that the granted they're the same company, but the inherent competition with themselves
yeah,
between college football and Madden will, I think, make the Madden team reach out to the college football team and be like, hey, like can we work together to maybe bring in some of your features
yeah.
and some of your stuff, like because there's a lot of stuff that like, but the road to glory mode and stuff, the whole um thing with like managing your energy and stuff week to week, that whole function would be awesome in like the player mode in Madden, to where you're
Hmm.
having to navigate like all like just the system of doing stuff like that. I think translated into Madden would, I think, function a lot better than what is in.
Absolutely.
And
There, there,
so
there are some.
I'm curious to see if stuff rubs
Yeah,
off onto Madden that way,
I think it will. There
because it's
are.
not very often, like it like clearly it took so long to make this game,
Oh yeah.
and it's not very often that a team that a team that size at a studio like EA gets that amount of time to just make something without like, clearly they delayed, and for good reason, because like they were busy doing this stuff, and clearly it was, you know, for the better, to make sure
Mhm.
everything was polished and good. And so it's really cool to see. Like I'm curious to see what would happen if Madden just said, "Hey, we're not going to put out a game for 2 years because we're going to work on all this stuff on the back end."
Yeah.
And like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it'd be really interesting to see, like if 2K did that or whatever. Like if all these studios that put out games every year just said, "Okay, we've heard you. We're not going to give you a game for a year or two because
Hmm.
we're going to step back into the lab and try and figure out how to make this better.
There are two main gameplay functions that are in College Football 25 that I am shocked have not been put into Madden for the last several years. Two for sure that are much more realistic to how real life football is in the terms of a simulation video game. First is the wear and tear system, the way by
Mhm.
which a guy gets a lot of plays. Eventually, he's more susceptible to injury. He's tired. You got to do your mass subs in there. The fact that that has never been put into Madden blows me away. Second, the abilities function, the fact that your impact players have specific abilities that they can do, and you can actually build on those. It feels very video gamey, but like that's part of sports that you can integrate in a way that's a video game mechanic that makes sense, right? Um, and we know who the impact players are in the NFL, and there are some that are definitely the fact that that's never been brought really into Madden in the modern day is crazy to me. And that's two very, very creative and well executed, well added features that are welcome to a college football video game or to a football video game simulation video game that, quite frankly, I'm shocked about. And I think you're onto something there. I really think that the response to this could cause, like, maybe they just put out minor updates for a couple of years and then revamp Madden and then just bring Madden out a few years from now. And it's like the real kind of relaunch of the game with a lot of these new features kind of integrated in a way that still feels unique to the other. But you're right. I think that the amount of time that they had to put this together needs to be examined. And in the Madden team's defense, I'm sure a lot of them would be sitting here saying, "Yeah, we would have loved to put that in if we weren't having to chug out a game every year."
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, we're not working on the mechanics when we've got to put the the cover shoot on the calendar like at the start of the league year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think you're onto something there. I really do.
No, yeah. I mean, I like obviously they're not like obviously they want games out every year for revenue purposes, but like it would be cool if they would do like every other like new
Yeah,
college football one year, the next year is Madden, and then you know what I'm saying? Like
that is
so
pretty
that
cool.
as a whole they can like focus on one game at a time.
Especially, and you've told me this, you're someone who actually will just hold off on getting a sports game for a couple of years and just play the old one
Yeah, I
until there's
mean,
a new one.
it
Yeah,
depends.
an
Like
actual new feature.
I usually end up at least getting it, but like usually on when it's on sale or something.
Hmm.
Like I just got the new NHL for free because it was the PlayStation Plus game of
Oh
the
yeah,
month. Like
yeah.
I mean,
It's over. Yeah.
I, occasionally you'll see something like that. I'm like, yeah, okay, and like I haven't bought that game in a couple years, so I was like, okay, yeah, I'll get that.
Shifting more into the actual meat and bones, so to speak, of college football
Yeah.
25. I want to talk about the presentation because I have been blown away, utterly blown away at how good the in-game presentation is. The easiest example I can go to immediately is for Bowling Green. Obviously, I knew they would have the 15 to 20-second thing of everyone running
Hmm.
out of the tunnel, and obviously every single school has their own traditions that they show. But the fact that they have like the Falcon screech in game and like I can actually
Hmm.
hear what the Falcon marching band would be playing in that moment. I did say to a friend, I kind of wish that Izzy Zumbo was in the game, just me as a fan, but it's clear that every team only got one fight song, so that's fine. Like that's fine.
Yeah.
Because there are other schools that I know that they have an actual touchdown song and then like a point after song, and it's a little different. So I am fine with that. I'm appreciative of that. Like over the years they can fine tune that stuff and make that even better. But the a level of in-game detail of the presentation of what happens for the home team has blown me away. Truly blown me away. I mean, we're talking years of research, so much work
Hmm.
for 134 programs. I mean, thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think we've talked about how in depth they went into building the stadiums and things like that, and
Yeah.
the amount of detail they went into, like we were talking about it online, like the cannon sound for Bowling Green after they score a touchdown is in there. Visually, I haven't seen like you don't they don't show a cannon like
No, it's
at
not
all,
there.
but the sound is there. But there is a cutaway of the ROTC guys doing the push-ups after a touchdown.
Right.
So that's realistic and real and very funny.
I was
That
in,
that's
in
in
the
there.
same area too, like that
Yeah,
end zone on
in
the
the end zone where they are.
um
So that's pretty
yeah.
cool to see. But yeah, I mean, even just backing up, like as soon as you turn on the game, you like
Oh yeah.
select your favorite team, and then that team is just that is your home screen. When like you open the game in the main menu, you have a bunch of pictures and logos from your favorite team. And I believe every when I looked at it, every team has a ticket. That
Yeah.
there's like a big notable game ticket for every team from like a rivalry matchup or something like that. Bowling Greens is the NIU game in 2003 when game day came to town. I
Yeah.
would imagine the schools got to pick.
Yeah.
I would guess because that's a pretty cool choice. Ohio State is the 2016 Michigan game.
Oh, it is. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's cool.
Uh, I I randomly saw Northwestern's is some like random game from 2000. You're
Well,
really going back in time there, guys.
and they are, but it's funny because the little home screen collages, which if you don't know what we're talking about, definitely look it up. Every team has one. I have found myself, Casen, going through the profile screen and just picking different teams to see what other teams look like. You know,
Yeah.
they're so well done. For example, I didn't expect there's a pennant in there with Bowling Green with our throwback logo on it. I'm
Yeah.
pointing above my head, the one that's the BGSU with the Falcon. They have that logo there. Like that's a little detail in there. But just like we mentioned the 2003 game, we would know about it being alumni. I'm sure Northwest football alumni know exactly what game that is. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that's the
No,
game when
exactly.
such and
Yeah.
such happened. I'm actually sitting. I haven't really paid a whole lot of attention. I don't think I've flipped it over to Syracuse yet to see what the ticket game is for that. But even then, like, there's a bunch of stuff for Otto the Orange and all that. I just haven't paid attention to the ticket. But the fact that they really treated even the details like that, like some team in this game and some team in the country is someone out there's favorite, and they did that for every single one, has really made me want to go around. And I saw a video that put a collage together of all of the entrances in the game, and it's like 2 hours long. And,
Yeah.
and I've watched a little bit of that because I'm thinking to myself, man, I want to play as a road team in every single stadium in this game because I know there's something in there for that specific fan base, that specific um, ball club, so to speak. So
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I just the stuff like that, little details like that, I did not expect. I did not expect, and I love the art style. I think you do as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's super cool. The menu is super clean. The menu doesn't look like the menu is so different from Madden. It looks, I think, a lot more like the NHL menu.
Mm,
It
I'll take your
because
word for it.
I like at least like the menu like structure with it being that way and like where stuff is located is a lot more, it's organized a lot closer to the NHL menu than like a Madden menu, because the
It's
Madden menus are like on the bottom and
the
and so
one
it's
really nice feature that they brought in, I think, that from the NHL menus that I remember even back in NHL 17, which I believe is the last one I really played. No, I played NHL 20 and it was in 20 as well. There's a default bar in on the very home screen that cycles in whatever game mode you played last. So
yeah, yeah.
so if you play Dynasty all the time, it'll just have Dynasty default there. Or if you switch to Road to Glory, the next time you fire the game up, it'll have Road to Glory there. Like it's dynamic. It changes around. Um, the game assumes that
Exactly. Yeah.
whatever game mode you're gonna go back right into, we'll just put that right there for you. um, and it simplifies the menu. It's so smooth. It's easy to find everything.
Hmm.
Um, in a lot of ways, it's even simpler than the old days at NCAA because back in those days, Casen, that I remember, like I even remember back in PS2 2006, they had to advertise other games on those. So there was like an extra screen, and there was a My NCAA screen, and there was a trophy room screen, like a bar, or tab, I should say. These are tabs, and I'm not saying that we couldn't get that in the future, but finding everything on this menu and in this HUD, so to speak, is very, very easy. Um, I do want to talk to you. What's your take on gameplay itself? Because you don't really have a previous NCAA in your repertoire of memory to compare it to. So,
Right, right. So that is all that I have to compare it to is like Madden gameplay, of which we knew going in because we saw the gameplay videos, and we've seen a lot of YouTube videos because there were uh a lot of like YouTubers that got the game early, that got like beta versions of it early, and so we were able to see a lot of gameplay
yep.
and them talking about it, and so we knew going in that it was going to be different, and it is a different system. It's a different, like the mechanics are different, the timings are different. And also, I mean, it's just like especially if you're playing with a smaller school, like the abilities are just different. Like you're not playing with professional athletes
You are not
over there at Akron. Like, you know what I'm saying? So
anywhere. They're not
um
professionals yet, you know.
the yeah.
They're kind of
So
pseudo professionals though now with other stuff
yeah,
we've talked about
right.
here. But continue.
But so yeah, so it's definitely been interesting to learn. I mean, and I've dabbled in like trying to figure out some of the other systems and or just like mechanics of the like options and things like that. And that's very interesting. Like my first immediate play with like an option play, I just directly fumbled the ball backwards like 10 yards. And I was like, that was not what I was supposed to
What's
do.
funny is they've added those quick tutorial pop-up things that come in and say, "Hey, by the way, this is how this
Yeah.
works." Because I knew immediately the option plays felt different than what I remembered. For example, one thing that's messing me up is it used to be when you had like say a play action play where the quarterback has the option to hand it off to the running back or keep it. It used to be that you had to hold down X. And now this game holds down X for the secondary option, so the quarterback keeps it. So I keep finding myself holding down X when I want him to just hand the ball off, even though, wait, that's the actual designed play, and I just did the other option. So I've been having to get used to those mechanics. The I formation's not really a thing everywhere anymore, or else you'd still have those like pitch option plays. I know some teams still do that, but like Army Navy, no doubt have that in their playbooks. I haven't played as them yet, but
Yeah.
that was
I've
much more prevalent in college football back when those games were around, which is another thing. College football has changed in 11 years.
yeah.
Like playbooks are way more dynamic. I've commented to you guys, I'm amazed how many teams just run a spread now. There's very few teams that have like under center is considered the weird package now. It used to be that
Yeah.
shotgun was the weird package of plays. Now everything runs out of the shotgun
Oh,
or the
yeah, yeah,
pistol.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean,
These,
which is exactly true. I mean,
yeah.
like, and NFL quarterbacks that usually run spread like have such a hard time playing in a pro system under center
Oh
because
yeah.
they're so not used to it. But anyway, so yeah, like in one of my in one of my dynasties, um, I am using the Baylor playbook,
Nice.
because like it's like an air raid system, and in it there's a trick play where it's like a pass out to the wide receiver and then he throws it across the field and it every single time it's like 45 yards. Like it is amazing. Like some of the trick plays you can do there. I don't remember. I think it's a different playbook, but there's like a reverse double pass trick play. So yeah, I've been trying to find some trick plays and it's been really fun
The
to
Wildcat for
experiment with
I've
those.
played at
Yeah.
Syracuse and the Wildcat package they have is kind of nuts just with the stuff you can do. Um, I will say tying that into another amazing feature in the game, the adaptive AI. You can only run like one or two Wildcat plays because those get blown up really quickly once they see that and if you don't know what I'm referring to, the in-game defense and offense will adapt based on what you've been running. So the same play is not going to work 3, 4, 5 times in a row. It might work twice in a row, but eventually you're going to see guys start to break that direction or that direction, much like actual football, especially after halftime. Halftime adjustments do happen big time,
Yeah, no,
both
I
directions.
exactly. Yeah.
Both
I mean,
directions. Third
for
quarters are nuts in this game.
oh, 100%. I mean,
Both
for
ways. Yeah.
example, the in Madden, there's a really cheese play in Madden that's the like the tight end attack
Oh, I know
that
what you're talking about.
yeah, it's just a tight end up and over sideline. And so and I think it's in that Baylor playbook that plays in there. And that worked once, and then it kind of worked the second time, and the third time the middle linebacker was lurking and intercepted it.
Yeah.
Like
You're signing up to get
immediately.
picked off. Like
It's
and so I one huge and so because of that, like actual football, like I appreciate this. This game is hard. Like it's definitely harder than those old NCAA games. Hard in a good way. Like it's actually a challenge. Like I haven't moved from varsity because I'm still trying to learn the mechanics, and I'm probably not going to move from varsity for a while because I was going to flip it to All American when I first started playing. And I had this thought of, you know what? That's probably a really bad time. in a brand new football video game. So I flipped it back to varsity, promptly lost both of my initial play now games. And I'm like, okay, all right, game, I see you. Like, okay. The biggest, and I'm sure you've seen it too, gripe that I've seen with this game is that defense is impossible. I disagree with that take. Just get better at it. I'm sorry. I know I sound like a just get good man. And I am, but
Well,
you got to learn defenses because defense is harder in actual college football
yeah.
now. I said that the other night, thoughts
No,
on any of that?
yeah, like defense is hard, is harder, I think, structurally because because it's designed for somebody who knows how defense works.
Right.
And the fact that the defense you're playing and the scheme you're running is very important.
Yes.
That there are schemes that are just going to be Swiss cheese, and there are schemes that are going to have much better likelihood against the pass and against the run. And so you have to know how to adjust and how to do all that stuff. And so like you sent me that video, and it's just like like a lot of dudes. I mean, I like a lot of the people playing this game, probably don't, have the in-depth knowledge of how to,
Right.
adjust for defense like that, like you would in an actual game.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's designed for somebody who does, which is what naturally just makes it harder.
I grew
But
up playing football, and I was playing various video games, both Madden and NCAA, growing up playing football. I know a lot about the X's and O's, not to like a college coaching level, but I know for a fact that when they give me the line that says they have one tight end in there, three wide receivers down, I am going for either like a more spread out 3-4 or 4-3, whatever you're running, and at least or potentially a nickel, because a nickel is 5 DBs out there versus the dime, which is 6 DBs out there. Where if you have 4 receivers out there, if you, in my opinion, if you run anything but a dime, you're an idiot. But like, at least in this game, maybe not in the past, but like you need to know the basic idea of this is how many in each area of the defense, from the front, from the box to the back set, to the safeties, from the DBs. You have to have an idea of what package is necessary um the defense of the play based on who's in the actual formation. And I can tell you, Casen, that was in the old games. They would give you the line of, okay, this is what the offense has in there. And it's like, okay, so for example, I have found more success. You know how they have the coach suggestions? I have been doing my own formation play calling based on that line, and I've gotten much better at defense just based on my, okay, if they do this, I'm going to do this. If they do this, I'm going to do this. Like the chess game in my mind. And sometimes I really don't know what, and I'll just do a coach suggestion. I can tell you also, zone defense in this game is way better than it was in NCAA. And man defense is way harder because you have to really run it yourself and, take a look at those controls and stuff like that. But I think you're right. I think there's a little bit of a wake up call from the people playing this game for the first time that might have thought they knew a little bit more about the X's and O's. And it's like, no, you kind of need to spend some time on that practice field in the mini games, man, and check out like what, like learn what you need to learn. I even had to do that for a little bit of the mechanical things, and I'm still doing that. So, but I
yeah,
appreciate
I
that, right?
mean,
We know, like
yeah,
we know the
exactly.
game. Not
And
everyone does pay attention to the game like we do.
yeah, and I think that that gets us to the special team side of the gameplay,
Yay.
the new kicking mechanics.
I, I think
How do you feel
I
about the
think it's
kicking?
great. I don't know why everyone's complaining about it. I'm dead serious. For me, it's fine. Like I literally messed up my very first kick, and I haven't messed up another one since. I've obviously had the thing. If you don't know what we're referring to, essentially they have a meter that goes side to side for your immediate accuracy, and then they have a power meter. And to activate the side to side first, you hold down X, but you have to keep holding it down for the power meter. Whereas in the old days, you would click like 3 times. It would be sort of like the pitch meter in the show, if you know what I'm talking about. Look it up. It's hard to explain without a visual aid. But uh, for me, it hasn't really been that difficult. But I totally understand people saying, no, it's impossible. I'm like, it's not impossible. Just, practice it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
To
mean
me,
it's
it's not. Yeah.
and anything beyond like 35 yards is an immediate shank for me. It's just
An
well,
immediate,
it's just the,
really?
the meter is just so hard to time. Like
No, it's not. But okay.
for me it is. For me it is.
I, uh, I I like it because it cuts down on me having to hit a button multiple times. It makes me just kind of, okay, I adjust and then I hit it once. And in an era where kicking is straight up just really hard, okay, it is, especially now in the NFL and that they move back PATs. I appreciate that once again they did a thing to make it more of a challenge. It's less of a game of cat and mouse and more of like a thing you got to spend time and get good at.
No, I actually I do like the actual like meter. Like I do like the way the meter functions.
Is
It's
designed.
just it's just the speed at the way that you have to like time that, especially once you get beyond like 35, is insane.
I will
But
also say that
college kickers, right?
right, it's college players, and so it's like when something grossly goes bad, it's like, well, they're not professionals. Like they're in terms of skill level, they're just not.
Yeah.
Now I will say, they have made what else? What else is there? The special teams is good. I will say on the special teams, other side of that, they have made the ability to actually blow up plays on special teams easier if you kind of know what you're doing. Like for example, I got a punt blocked in my very first game again. Like I was playing a Syracuse against Pitt. Punt was blocked, and then later on, I was able to block a punt, like kind of running a similar formation. So it's like, oh, okay, so an explosive blow up play like that is more possible. I've also blocked a field goal. I didn't really think that was possible, but I played a team that had a really, really fast edge rusher on the end there, and I hit square at the right time, and boom, he blocked it. I'm like, that would have been impossible in the NCAA games.
Mm-hmm.
So that stuff again, it seems like there's a system in place for every thing in the game that you want to do in game. You just have to practice it and get better at it and everything. The thing I love the most in this game, gameplay wise, I'm an offensive lineman by trade. Running the football is so much fun in this game.
Mm-hmm.
I would go as far as to say it's the funnest running the football has felt in a football video game ever in my life anyway that I've played. The only thing I can think of that's better was like with Jerome Bettis back in like Madden 05 or Madden 04.
Mm-hmm.
But the actual, if you follow the holes of your linemen and just actually execute the play, like you can break for some real fun yardage. And one of the first trophies I got in the game was like breakaway speed, where you do a 50+ yard touchdown run. Those happen in college football, right? So, yeah, running football is great, and passing is fantastic as well. I mean, I just think offense is just incredibly fun. I mean, you can really open the field up. But that's also what makes it feel that much better when you shut something down on defense. It's like, yes. Like, now I haven't played anyone online yet, but with our brewing online dynasty, I'm very curious to see how people get it, exploiting what systems in this game.
I played my brother. We did Bowling Green Toledo.
Nice.
And so that was very interesting.
I'll be that guy. Who did you play as?
Bowling Green.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Continue.
Yeah, so it was interesting to see how that worked. And then we're in a dynasty in the same conference, and so in a couple games we play each other there on that one as well. But
what conference are you in, and what teams do you have?
So we are in the Sun Belt, and I'm Southern Miss, and he's Marshall.
Awesome.
So.
And obviously, you and I have a online dynasty that'll start in a number of weeks.
Yes.
So with friends of the show.
the final thing I'll just bring up, just because it's very, very huge to this game as well, is the like road game.
Yeah.
The road game environment, the stadium pulse. It is so hard to win on the road. I mean,
it's hard. Yep.
Like if you're sort of like a mid-major squad and heading into Austin, you are cooked, brother. You are cooked. Like
if you're anyone going in. Like it's tough for the road team if you're a Power 5 team too. I mean,
it's also just the visuals, because the way that they're able to get like the stadium, which this is what you can't really tell in Madden so much, because of just naturally the way that like NFL stadiums are. They in college, the stadiums and the seats are so much closer to you and to the field that if you're just playing in a huge stadium like the Shoe or the Big House or Kyle Field or whatever, like any huge stadium like that, it just feels on top of you.
Yep.
And then you have
Big time.
the stadium pulse meter just through the roof. It's insane.
Oh no, I mean I've always looked at like say the Penn State whiteout, and I thought I don't care what
Yeah.
team you are, if you're Ohio State, I'm like no, it's like literally I'm like no, it's legitimately the 80 of us versus like 100,000 people, like plus their team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like and it feels that way in this game. I will say that I almost we're recording this on a Wednesday. I'm playing like a BG Dynasty myself, and BG plays Penn State week 2, and I almost beat him, which was cool. It was a realistic kind of like way I think that game could go, but I could see kind of where what was realistic was if you start to play well, the crowd kind of dulls down, you know, because it's like, oh, and nothing silences a crowd like a touchdown on them, and they're not as loud the next time out, you know, right? So the ebbs and flows of the game. So like, yeah, that first drive is going to be insane, but if you start to like have some success, they're going to quiet down real fast, just like actual college football fans do, right?
Yeah.
Nothing better than silence a crowd.
Any mistake you make gets them back in it.
Back in it. You're right.
And so like I in my Southern Miss dynasty, I went on the road to Vandy. And it's Vandy, so they're not super great. And so I was in the game like the whole time. And then once it got really close towards the end, I mean that the stadium went nuts because they scored to get back in it. And then I couldn't do anything after that. It was brutal.
You were cooked. Yeah. And so again, feels realistic. I mean, it feels like, okay, we got this game on the road. I think I'm going to really appreciate that, especially in the in the mid-major kind of games and playthroughs I'll play, because to appreciate that in a monster like if massive stadium of which, you know, one of the 25 top in the game, like you expect that, right? Where I appreciate it is the dynamic crowd system, where in the dynasty mode, the crowd isn't necessarily full for your first game if it's not against a big opponent. It's realistic. I mean, it's realistic crowds. I mean, that's what happens in sports, right? It's not packed for every game. No, go ahead.
In my road to glory, I'm the starter for Kennesaw State, and that it's already the smallest stadium like in FBS, and there's maybe 1,000 people there.
Exactly. So right. And so that I've appreciated that, but like those conference games down the stretch, I think are going to be really, really well done. The last thing I want to talk about before we move on, because we got other things to talk about, is in Dynasty, the recruiting mode. And of course, you've played a little bit of that road to glory. I've heard a lot of people say recruiting is a lot of work in this game. It is, but it's fun. Quite frankly, I think it's fun. I do think that one of the things they'll do in the future is cut down the amount of time you have to spend doing it. I will also say, though, if you have a real big issue with that in Dynasty mode, there is an auto recruiting switch you can just turn on if that's such a problem. I've just heard some people really complain about that, and I'm like, I'm sorry. Most of us love this stuff. But I get if you just want to play the games. I get that too. So,
yeah. It definitely. I mean, it's a challenge. I mean, it's like half of the game of Dynasty mode, right? Is that you have to basically keep watching your players and, you know, give them attention and try and you know, steal 3 and 3 and 4 stars that you'd never be able to get normally.
I will also say I can already tell there's a mechanic I am not going to care about in Dynasty mode. That little meter that says risk of transferring for your top players.
Oh, yeah.
I can already tell I am not going to care about that in the slightest. You could transfer the second we lose in the playoff. I don't care. I will replace you.
Yeah.
I can already tell that's going to be like, I don't care. Transfer portal. We'll replace you with someone good.
It's like also, it's like, that's fine. I don't care. I'm not going to be here anyway.
Yeah. Right. Oh, yeah.
I'm getting the head coach job.
Incredible. Yeah. Just the amazing meme by Magic Johnson. Yeah, I'm not going to be here. So, anyway, it's a lot of fun. Let us know your thoughts out there. We will no doubt continue talking about it, but for right now, it lives up to the hype in every way. I love this game.
Absolutely. I mean, just also with the level of detail, I mean, I just final thing in Road to Glory, like
Yes.
part of the thing is you get like text messages from like your coach, your teammates and stuff,
Yes, you
and
do.
it like comes up with like it's essentially like a it gives you options of which thing to choose,
It's an
and that
RPG. It's
yeah,
RPG elements.
basically
Yeah,
yeah,
it's an RPG.
and
Yep.
so like it gives you different things you can do and good or bad outcomes depending on what you do, and like it's been blowing up because one of the things is like a girl from one of your classes like texts you to go to a party, and if you like are too intense about it, she blocks you.
Wow. Okay. So that's wow. So they really did go more in depth with that, huh?
I don't know. Well, it's just weird. Like you can like you have to like choose to like play it cool or like I don't know. I don't know.
I
It's
saw a
weird.
scenario on that
Yeah.
same note, though. I saw a scenario of like you're behind the starting quarterback, and the starting quarterback says, "Hey, can you wake me up? Like if I sleep in, like don't go to practice."
Yeah,
And you
exactly.
have the
Yeah.
option to not do that. Therefore, you get more reps and
Yeah.
start. It's like, do you want to be a good teammate, or are you only out for yourself? Like you can be a real
Yeah.
menace.
Yeah, like you can do that. But from what I've seen though, is that when you do that, like the coach finds out,
Mm,
and then like your coach trust goes down, and like your
gotcha.
teammates hate you, and yeah, like everybody hates you. But if you're hitting the portal anyway, it doesn't matter.
I feel like yeah, like I said, I want to do a road to glory mode that's just where I'm an absolute menace. I transfer, I play somewhere else all 4 seasons. I just I just make every ridiculous decision I can. Like I don't know. I can see them going way more in depth with things in Road to Glory.
Yeah,
But really
absolutely.
really everything here. Uh, Also, one feature they can bring back, not this year, but in the future years, mascot games. Everyone will love when they bring that back. That'll be in the trailer whenever they bring that back. Um, is that all we got for college football for now?
Yeah, I think that's a lot. Well,
Yeah, we
we
said a
might
lot.
bring it. We might talk more about it later as our online dynasty progresses.
Unfolds.
But yeah, we
Getting to
got a lot
more.
to talk about.
Yep, get more things on the docket here. I wanted to at least briefly touch on the success of Paul Skenes in our like since our last show. He not only was Nate an All Star, part of the All Star game, one of the Pirates too. Brian Reynolds being the other one. Paul Skenes taking MLB and quite frankly sports by storm. Helps that he came up now at a time when there's nothing else really competing with. I mean, obviously Wimbledon happened and other things, but in American sports right now, Skenes very much has been the story. Him, of course, the one half of the LSU power couple, Livy Dunn, is his girlfriend. And so it's been an amazing story to watch. Right now, I got it right in front of me here. Paul Skenes, he's 6-0. He's got a 1.90 ERA with 89 strikeouts, which is insane across the amount that he's gone. But across 11 games, I should say, and 11 starts. I will say also, uh, I would say when he first came up, it really felt like a regionalized thing in Pittsburgh. Now I think something is brewing that I'm really excited about as a fan because Pirates went on a little bit of a run there where the Pirates sit at 500 for the first time since the beginning of the season. Well, not the first time, since earlier in the season at the All Star break, and you're trotting a flamethrower out there every 5 games or so. I'm really excited to see what the Pirates could do, but ultimately, he started the All Star game. I was looking forward to that. I did watch it. I knew he was only getting 1 inning, so part of me was like, I'd rather him start the game and not like go in the middle of the game where they we waste 20 of his pitches since he throws so hard. But ultimately, it was fine. He scoreless first inning. He didn't get a strikeout, which was whatever. But he started the All Star game. It was good. AL won the game 5-3. But I just wanted to briefly touch on the success and sensation of Paul Skenes, starting pitcher for my Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah, yeah.
Any reaction over there,
It's
Casen?
it's great for the the long suffering fan base there in Pittsburgh that needed a new franchise guy, and I think they might have found him in Livy
Yeah.
Dunn's boyfriend.
I halfway through you saying that I couldn't tell if you were being sarcastic or serious. I really couldn't tell. I mean, I will say this. It definitely feels like the arrival of another Mount Rushmore-esque figure in the city. It feels different than even when Garrett Cole arrived. Like it really was the case. I will say this: he's under club control for 5 seasons. Starting this season, the window I believe is open for us for as long as that's the case. And I'm not thinking in terms of him staying with Pittsburgh Things can change a lot in that amount of time. But I will say this: I hope he becomes such a sensation that Pittsburgh is at least able to get a good look at him, since our ownership has shown a lot of prowess to want to pay guys like that, Brian Reynolds included. Uh, I just my worry is 5 years from now we'll be outbid, but my thoughts are that's 5 years from now. So a lot can happen in that period of time. But it's just cool to see the sensation of him build the way it did beyond Pittsburgh. It really feels like the last time we had this much attention on an athlete in Pittsburgh was quite literally Sidney Crosby. So on an individual sport changing athlete in the city. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I mean, no, absolutely. I mean, you can only hope that he'll want to attract some free agents, and maybe you'll be able to get guys you wouldn't normally have been able to without a superstar pitcher on the roster, and we'll see. I don't yeah.
Pirates have one of the best
See how it
pitching
goes.
staffs in baseball. All I'm saying is, if the Pirates make if the Pirates get close to the postseason or make a run down the stretch, a dude like Skenes is going to make a massive difference, especially if you're trotting him out there for an automatic win every 5 games or so, or it gives you almost the prowess of scoring an automatic win. Last thing I'll touch on, I don't care that he was pulled with a no-hitter. That's going to happen to this man. That's going to happen to this man a lot, clearly. It's also not really the first time it happened this season. I think this is the first time it really got attention. But in reality, the man throws 103. He's got a number in there. We need him to last years, okay? Hey, will he get a no-hitter in his career? Yes, he probably will get several, folks. He just throws so many strikeouts and it runs his pitch count up, but he'll get a no-hitter. I'm not worried about that. I'm also not worried that he was pulled. A guy who's had literally everything in baseball happen to him in the last year of his life in a speed that we've never seen before. I'm not worried about him getting a no-hitter. He will get that. So shout out Paul Skenes.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
That's all. That's any thoughts on the All-Star game? I didn't know if you wanted to touch on any of that.
No, yeah, no, I didn't.
I assume you were just
end up
playing
seeing
college
it.
football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
I had it on, but I was also playing college football. Anyway, we're switching to pop culture because we got to do that. We're going to get into a pair of Marvel teasers that came out since our last show. I got to be completely honest with you, Casen, both of which were surprising to me. And we'll talk about this first one. We got a teaser trailer for Agatha All Along, which I have written down here. You talk about a series that truly no one asked for. That's been my first thought about this series ever since. No knocking anyone involved, but of all of the characters to do a Marvel television series on, I was like, really? We're doing one on the Agatha? When I saw the teaser, I was like, okay, if you're going to do this, you got to do this, which it comes out around this Halloween. Looks like very horror-esque. It's going to be a Marvel TV series, Agatha All Along. It's also gone through like 4 name changes. My thoughts are, why don't we just keep the project name under wraps until we actually decide? Because it makes
well, I think that was on purpose. From
Do
my
you
understanding,
really?
From my understanding, the name changes were then to set up the joke Agatha All Along, as
Okay.
in the show was Agatha All Along.
Oh,
Like
okay.
from
All right.
my understanding, that it was a bit that
Okay.
Marvel was doing as part of the promo for it. Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, I will say the other thing I have written down here is I'm a little bit surprised because I swore that Deadpool and Wolverine was the only Marvel project we were going to get this calendar year. And this comes out in Halloween, which I'm surprised about. Other than that, I thought the trailer looked pretty cool, and I like that Aubrey Plaza is now in the MCU because I love her from Parks and Recreation. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean it looks like an interesting premise. It's back to it's like a continuation of the WandaVision storyline.
In some
So
way, yeah.
in some way, and I'm curious. I mean, I have no idea what was going on with in the trailer. I was very confused.
I actually rewatched it prior to our show, right before, just to kind of pick out a few things in there. And it really is a teaser. There's so many quick imagery in there, but it shows me that this is really genuinely going to look like a horror series. Like there's going to be some significant horror elements in there. And whenever that's been done really well in storytelling is when I really appreciate horror elements in any kind of pop culture storytelling. Not horror for horror's sake. Obviously, this is about a coven of witches, so they're gonna lean into that, sort of they did with Werewolf by Night, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, I'm intrigued to just see what it is. I'm curious to see how that works. But yeah, I was a little surprised by um the some of the cast in that.
No doubt we'll
But
be talking about it among the jam-packed fall between that and Hard Knocks and everything else.
yeah, absolutely.
Um, we also got a teaser trailer for Captain America: Brave New World. That I really didn't expect, but I sent that to you and a few other folks. The second I was just happened to be
Mhm.
online, the second it dropped, I was like, "Oh wow, this is actually okay. This is out." Comes out in February. We got a teaser. There's a lot more story cohesion in there, but also I really don't think they showed too much, as they do with some other trailers. Marvel's also been very good at including scenes that don't make the cut at all. So, um, thoughts on anything there? I'll let you kind of lead things off with that one.
um yeah, I mean so first it's definitely um an interesting thing because you have Harrison Ford taking up the mantle of I guess what President Ross is that
Yeah,
what this
Thunderbolt
is
Ross
now?
is now
Yeah.
president. Yeah,
And
or he's,
so
or he's
taking up
running for president.
yeah, so he's taking over the character and it obviously immediately in the trailer they're like, "Oh, you look a little different."
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, okay. But yeah, I thought the storyline there the it looked pretty cool, and I think it was interesting because they knew probably when cutting the trailer that there was a level of like there was a level of detail that they had to give to earn the audience's like trust, and because I think there were a lot of questions with there were just a lot of maybe ambivalence about the whole Falcon and the Winter Soldier storyline. And so I think that they knew that they had to give certain things away to get you to buy into the movie.
yeah.
And so I think that was why they showed, the obviously it was a given, but that was why, we had the Red Hulk and stuff like that. So
Well, obviously that was the big reveal. They show Red Hulk very quickly at the end of that. Also, the posters come out that shows Red Hulk kind of like, around the shield. I watched like the new Rockstars breakdown of this, and I try to take it with those with a grain of salt because they pull a lot from the trailer, so I'm not going to get too much into that. I think the one big thing that I do have written down here is there's rumors that the real main villain in this story is going to be the leader. Are you familiar with who the leader is, Casen?
no.
The leader, he's only in like one book out of the many I own, but the leader is actually a Hulk villain for the most part, and he was actually teased. He's this. If you look up the leader Marvel, he's like this green guy with a really big head. Um, like his brain's really big. He was teased at the end slash post credit scene of the first Incredible Hulk movie. I'm talking the one back in '08 with Edward Norton.
Oh, that's
Okay,
okay. So
that's
I know
that
what scene you're
guy.
talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, I know what you're talking about
and
now.
and there's been rumors that that actor's back, for this
Okay.
and whole thing. So I'm thinking that that it's going to be somehow revealed that he's the real behind the scenes person. How you reprise a role in that amount of time and justify his absence and all this MCU stuff, I don't know. That they can come up with a creative way to do that. I don't think it really matters, but I do think that the whole idea of a brave new world is going to somewhat have to do with there's symbolism in that title. I think something is going to tie into something that they allude to in some sort of Deadpool and Wolverine, because apparently that movie goes directions. A lot of folks have said that. Um, in addition to it being amazing, everyone has said it really kind of not a hard reset of the MCU, but like I do think Deadpool and Wolverine is going to be a hard reset of the phase we're in because of what's happened with the
Yeah.
switching from going to multiverse, whether that's mutants, whatever. But this is the first real like hugely casted character that we have in Anthony Mackie returning to his role as Captain America, that we see, okay, what's going on in the dynamic of the world. Thunderbolt Ross, obviously Giancarlo Esposito's in this movie too. So I think this has the potential to move the needle of things in the MCU, sort of like the second Captain America did, where a lot of stuff has changed by the end of that one movie. You know what I mean? I think
Hmm.
that this movie could be, if not as beloved, but we'll see. I really like the character of Captain America, and I love Sam Wilson as a character. Um, I think we could see a lot of things move and change that, like, things are fundamentally different, hence the title Brave New World. I will also say no images at all of Sebastian Stan in there as Bucky. I hope he's in the film. I really hope he's in that movie. I would imagine he's going to
Hmm.
be, but he wasn't in the teaser at all. So I don't know. I think I like the dynamic of the two of those guys, Sam and Bucky, at the end of their show, which existed before our show. And I just kind of hope that that friendship continues in some way. Um, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I definitely think that it's the title definitely insinuates that it's going to be leaning into, maybe or maybe the outcomes of Deadpool and Wolverine, but that is leaning into the direction of the M words of multiverse and mutants and
yeah,
things like that. And I think maybe a contributing factor will be the fact that, like, Sam Wilson's not, like, he's not, a super soldier. He's not,
right.
like, he doesn't have the abilities that a lot of these other people have, and so I don't know if that's going to play a part in it, um,
Right.
or
I
not.
also
But
can see some situations that lead to some extremes having to be done by Thunderbolt Ross and potentially
mhm.
others that lead to a Red Hulk happening. I'm not convinced that Thunderbolt Ross is Red Hulk like he is in the comics. I'm not convinced that that's the case. I think Red Hulk could be multiple people, you know. So I don't know.
Would
Mhm.
I mean, would 80-year-old Harrison Ford sign up to do, like, mocap for Red Hulk? No,
I
no, he would
I
not.
don't I don't know. I mean, like my thing is this is a different kind of franchise than he's used to doing, and he's shown that he's kind of tired doing the franchises obviously that he's been in. Um my big thing with Harrison Ford is he clearly loves acting. He doesn't love promoting his movies.
Mhm.
But when you go by what movie promotion is back when he was starting out and what a lot of the craziness stuff you have to do for clicks now is, I can understand, you know. So hard to say. Would he do mocap? Would he have to? Hard to say. Um, at, we'll find out. But I pulled a lot, but I was able to pull a lot from that trailer. Also, this comes out. This comes out on February 15th. That's set upon like a presidential election and stuff like that. This was initially going to come out like this fall before everything was pushed back because of the the strikes and everything last year.
Mhm.
So strategically, this just feels like another good Marvel project that's going to come out at like a socially relevant time in history. And yeah, I'm very excited for it. I
Yeah,
really did not expect to see that teaser this
probably like
soon.
President's Day weekend, probably, I
Yeah,
think.
like it comes out on Valentine's Day, 2025. So cool,
Yeah, yeah, we'll
cool
see.
stuff. Let us know your thoughts on any of that stuff. Speaking of stuff that we got to
Um,
talk about,
we
yeah,
we did get another teaser for Deadpool. With
I purposely didn't watch it.
Okay, yeah,
I purposely didn't watch it. Like I know kind of what happens in it. I'm to the point
yeah,
now where just show me the film.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
ready.
yeah. Um, and then the only other thing, I guess, while we're on the topic of Marvel, to bring up was something that happened today.
Yeah. Today,
Was that
Wednesday.
there was a lot of talk about Sean Levy doing the new Avengers movies, but I guess his schedule is full, and he's busy, and so as a backup plan, it sounds like Marvel's reaching out to the Russo brothers to do them again. So, and it seems like the intention is that they will come in with, like, a creative direction voice for every future project
Mm.
between now and when the movies come out. So
No one has woven together Avengers films better than those two guys.
yeah.
And obviously they directed the two arguably most important movies in the MCU so far. So
And they
yeah,
also just direct really good movies.
yeah, they're just really good at what they do
Yeah.
as a brother duo. I will say that it's a great move. It really sounds like this revamp and that Marvel's really looking around and that Deadpool Wolverine's going to kind of be the end of this kind of mediocre we're seeing what sticks Marvel period and going to be
Hmm.
the start of kind of like okay, no, let's start with a bang where Marvel movies and stuff are an event. Okay, like let's return to that era, and they're treating this movie because this one really is like with these
Hmm.
two guys, but this one really feels like that. I hope by then Captain America will feel like that. Also, I've seen rumors floating around that because of the changes since Jonathan Majors has exited Disney and everything, that Young Avengers might be straight up shelved or scrapped. So, which if that's true, that's only rumors I've seen. But if that is true, that makes sense in my head because I'm like, well, there's no real avenue to get there now. Like we're having to change quite a few things here to arrive, especially if we are jumping and going to mutant stuff next. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know if that's true.
true.
That's not
Yeah.
confirmed or anything, but
I mean, I don't know what, I mean, you could do that without Kang. I mean,
you could,
like,
right.
I mean,
You just need
just
to
a,
establish some young
yeah.
Avengers first.
Well,
And there's not any.
true.
There's like
I don't
two.
care. I mean, I'd watch a show just about Kate Bishop and uh the
Miss Marvel.
yeah, Miss Marvel. I would watch a show just about them having a conversation for 2 hours. I mean,
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're Marvel fans, but I can acknowledge now when something's not very good, and I think I even listened back to you and I talking about Secret Invasion like a year ago, and I'm like, yeah, this wasn't good. I just this really was was not very good, and we were just dancing around that. Um,
speaking of wasn't good, do we want to move
yeah,
into
all right. Yes. Yes. To which I've said, Casen, we need a rating system for Star Wars like we have for Marvel projects because yeah, let's talk about this what I think is a bad Star Wars series that just ended. Um we're gonna get into this, and I do want to talk a little bit non-spoiler just about the series itself real quick now that it's over. And I mean a few sentences, okay? About the Acolyte. If you're a die-hard Star Wars fan that watches everything, go ahead and give this a watch. I would like to know what you think about the lore or anything else along those lines. It for me, it felt like content for content's sake, but like this is what happens when you try to push an area of storytelling in an era. You're gonna get things that work and things that don't. Overall, I did not like this series, but in an era where it feels like the whole internet's just come down with a hammer on this whole series, and I felt like we were pretty fair in our last episode about what we do and don't like, I can objectively say that regardless of any of the lore stuff that might make you mad in this film in this 8 episode series of The Acolyte on Disney Plus, the acting and writing brings everything down significantly for me in a series that has good fighting scenes, good choreography and stuff like that. It just felt so poorly written that I all of that annoys me and bores me more than anything
yeah.
with the lore they do in this. That's the main non-spoiler thing I wanted to get out of the way before we dove all the way into these last 3 episodes. Go for it.
No, I mean, yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I, yeah, I mean, I was really intrigued by the concept of, a show about the set in the High Republic. I still think it's kind of cool to see the dynamics and sort of the perception, um, of the Jedi at the time and sort of just how uh the lore is being introduced. I think that the concept is interesting. Some of the ideas are interesting. I think for the most part, I like a lot of the directing. Like we'll talk about it later, but the one huge fight scene in the finale that I think a lot of people didn't like it, but I thought that the way that one part was filmed was really cool. Um
Sure.
it's different. I mean, they're different ways. Episode 5, we talked about that. Like I think episode 5 was directed really well. Um, and it was just it was a fresh perspective in like a Star Wars show or just Star Wars project. And I thought that was just an interesting idea. But as far as yeah, the writing and the execution of a lot of the story plot points, just not there. It's just not there.
Hasn't been
Um,
here. And the last thing I'll say for non-spoilers is Disney really needs to find a way, even if it's just on Disney Plus or something, they really need to separate out their projects into eras. Because I had multiple people ask me, I had a couple people ask me that mainly in my family, like, when does the Acolyte take place? And I had to explain where that was in the timeline. And it's really occurred to me that as they've just thrown these Star Wars projects out there, they need to really separate the eras out with like actual specific names, sort of like Marvel has with phases. Um, and they need to do it in a formal way, just because we have the Mandalorian, Andor, and at the Acolyte that are all set at very different periods of time in the galaxy, and you got these people that just like all things Star Wars. Even they are starting to get more confused with like when what is in relation to another thing. So much so to where someone who I know was so shocked that Luke Skywalker shows up at the end of Mandalorian season 2 because they literally didn't think that he was like existing yet. Like that was a
Yeah.
really extreme example, but that was from someone who does not watch everything. So it was one of those things where I'm like, okay, so people don't even know what era it is. Like, you know, that's just a criticism I've had for a while.
Which
I don't
is
want to
fair
say.
because they
Yeah,
they don't really explain, like it's not like they, because of the way that there aren't like years in the Star Wars unit, like
not no
there's the made up like Star Wars universe years of like um
Wikipedia.
BBY and ABY of like the Battle of
Yeah,
Yavin, but like the that's like the made up system that like super fans use. So casuals and just people who aren't on Wikipedia all the time don't
yeah,
understand the time,
or
and
literally
so
writing it.
so the only you have to just listen for clues of like when the Empire fell. Okay, so we're after Episode 6. You know,
Right.
like so it's yeah, so it's just really weird, and you wouldn't it's really hard to know. They also, I mean, they probably just thought it was um after Rise of Skywalker or after Last Jedi or whatever. Like
Right.
it's
And or they'll say in relation to actual projects where it's been noted, established, and discussed that the Acolyte takes place 100 years before Episode 1. Well,
yeah,
that's High Republic. That's a long time ago. um, that's all for spoilers. You ready to get into this?
or the spoiler free. Yeah,
Uh,
um,
that's it for spoiler
yeah,
free. Let's get into this, the meat and potatoes of this end of the series. I like last time. I don't want to go moment by moment, episode by episode. I'd rather just kind of talk about everything that happens as a whole. We had one episode where almost nothing happened, which was the switcheroo episode where Osha and May have that happen, and then nothing really happens. Truly, it
yeah. Well,
starts and
like
ends. And then hang on, then we had the flashback episode from the Jedi
yeah,
perspective, and then we had the actual finale. So wherever you want to start, let's go.
yeah. No, so I well, let's just pick up on Episode 6. So
Sure.
like we talked about like, oh, the implications of this could be interesting. Like it but it was weird because like it's again, you talked a lot about the very famous and very important concept in writing known as Chekhov's gun, where
Chekhov's gun. Yes.
if you do something or you point to something or you reference something, it has to eventually pay off, and it has
Yes.
to be used or referenced or cause some sort of thing to advance the plot.
Mm-hmm.
There was no point to this.
There was not.
Like
It was a filler
like
episode.
the 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 Sith guy immediately, like he didn't even think it was May, like he knew it was Osha the whole time.
Chimere. Yeah.
Chimere, and then Soul was like thought it was Osha for a little bit, but then the little like hound guy,
Yeah.
the
Braggle
guy
or
the
whatever.
tracker guy, he like outed May to him, and so he knew it was May
How did Soul
by the end
not
of the
know it was
episode.
OSHA? How did
Yeah,
Soul not know?
I
Yeah.
don't know, because like he couldn't sense the dark force with it. I don't know,
They
but
assassinated Soul's character by the end of the show. But go ahead, continue.
yeah, we'll get into yeah. But like, so it ended up like not doing anything, and so it was like, what was the entire point of this?
It
Like you had them
literally.
switch places, and then eventually for them to end up back together where it made no sense.
We're right, and you got the romantic tension going on the planet between those two, OSHA and Chimere, which
Again, for no
the
reason.
reason because we have to have that in Star Wars, whatever. I will say, literally, that episode began with OSHA, I have something to tell you. It ends with May, I got something to tell you. That is how it happens. That's what happens with Soul. That is talking to her.
Yeah.
Getting moving along though, I want to get into episode 7 because we knew this was coming. Episode 3, as we talked about in controversy from the last episode, we talked about the first half of the show. I figured we were going to get an episode which was another flashback from the Jedi perspective, and that is what this show is. or this episode was. The Jedi cover up revealed, so to speak. What was your thought? What were your thoughts on the episode as a whole? Because for me, in a lot of ways, this presented more questions and showed that like the writers of this show, when it comes to structuring plot, aren't even following the rules within their own show. So now I don't even know what the Force can do or the thread or whatever. But I was more just utterly confused by the end of like, okay, so we really are just making the Force and the thread do whatever we want.
Yeah, no, I mean, the show lost the plot when all the witches turned into Death Eaters and could just like transport
Explain what Death Eaters are.
They
turn into smoke, right?
Yeah, like they just turned to.
They turned into the smoke monster from Lost.
I mean, it looked like the yeah, it just looked like the scene from Goblet of Fire where all the Death Eaters just
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Moving around in the campground and stuff, and it's just like, what are we doing? Like we've never seen it. I felt in that exact moment the same way I felt in Rise of Skywalker when he just like when he just like healed her, and it was just like, this has literally never been addressed as an option that you can do, and you're just out here pulling it out of nowhere.
Well,
like where has this been X number of times when it would have helped somebody not die?
Oh, I have one written down here. The very last scene of the entire season has a Force ability that breaks everything in Star Wars. We'll get to that in a second.
Oh, yeah.
That shatters everything in the entire lore of the series. But anyway, we'll get to that. I have it written down. But anyway, talking about more of some of the character moments, I really don't like what they did with Soul's character in this, because he has this connection that he won't. That like the Jedi are already kind of creepy and not exactly like great, and this doesn't really help them in any way. It kind of shows how, if anything, I have this written down here, Jedi buried in the bureaucracy of the High Republic is like a theme in this show, and I get it, because I'll be completely honest, I kind of hate the Jedi by the end of this show.
No,
at least the High Republic Jedi, I'm like, these guys, this is awful. Like they're not good.
Totally
they're not
agree
good
with
at
you.
anything.
I mean,
they're not good at anything. Like it's like,
no, I totally agree with you. And which again,
yeah,
I like the concept of let's do a show showing this is why people hate the Jedi. Like,
yeah,
they're a bureaucratic, like full of themselves organization that there are people that make bad decisions for good reasons, whatever. But like they cover up things up, they hide things, they lie. Like I like the concept of that plot.
They
but
have
like
this...
the execution and just adding all of these stupid details. Like we don't need to watch Torben complain about how he wants to go home for an hour.
No,
like what are we? Yeah, yeah. He's a toddler and wants to go home. Like
right, but like also, that's such a more unbelievable plot point of like, you're telling me that his desire to go home was so strong that this, the All Mother was able to, essentially brainwash him for that being your motivation. Like for that to be your motivation, we got to talk about like, there needs to be stakes higher than that. Like a lover coming back to life or something like that. Like it just seemed like such an unbelievable thing right there. But okay, I want to get to another moment that happened because it was just so bizarre to me, and an example of the laziness of a show, right? The writing I'm talking about. You got big Wookiee Jedi comes in. He's obviously skipping ahead. He's the one who's manipulated this time, and he just goes to town on Soul and Torben. I mean, literally. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, well, we're gonna lose. Like one of him versus two of us, we're gonna lose this fight. And especially a Wookiee with Jedi abilities, like unbelievable. And I did kind of like the power of that being shown, like a Wookiee with Jedi Force sensitivity. It's like, yeah, that checks out. Strength of a Wookiee, Force, Jedi, he'd be very powerful. And so that all happens, but then it shows that, like, I guess it's showing like the power of many idea that they're all using that to control him. And I kind of interpreted that. I'm trying to fix it for the show because I don't like when I have to do this for a show, but maybe they just need that many of the witches to get into Wookiee's mind or something. But either way, what doesn't make any sense to me is she's using the Force, the other Jedi's using the Force to bring him out of it. And then they all just like what? They all just die because like she was just that powerful enough, and what, she broke the thread or whatever. Like
Yeah.
that was
Like
so
it
lazy to
was
me. I'm like, okay, so they're just not going to explain that. Like I
yeah,
like
like breaking the connection just killed everybody.
yeah,
Like that
or
made
knocked
no
everybody
sense.
out or something for the fire, whatever they're trying to
Yeah.
insinuate there. I mean, that right there, I'm like, okay, so the show has lost within the rules of its own thing. Also, the idea of like, Soul obviously is revealed to have killed the All Mother or whatever in front of May, which obviously becomes a point later on in the finale. But the thing that I was like, there's something that you're acting very threatening. You're going to do something. We're here to save the children. You kind of know that. Like, yes, I'm going to like attack you if you go into like your, ultimate boss fight mode. And then she's like, I was going to let her go. I'm like, okay. Like that right there. Another plot thing that's like, you could have just led with that and this wouldn't even happened, you know?
Well, that's precisely the point. Is like I
Yeah.
was gonna let her go, and it's like, well, you should have told everybody else
You
because
should have
like
told
we're here
anyone that.
fighting you. Like you like clearly that wasn't your opinion until I stabbed you with my lightsaber.
Yeah.
Because this would not be happening if everybody else was on board with you letting her go.
Which
Like
once again, a stab by a single lightsaber actually worked here, and she was dust. So haha.
I also didn't understand totally like the first time I saw that, and I didn't even understand what was happening because it looked the way they made that scene look was that it was like an accident that like she turned into dust and was like doing the Death Eater thing to fly away,
Yeah.
and then he turned his lightsaber on, and like the way they made that look was that like it got caught in the dust and killed her.
Yeah.
Like
Or he didn't know
but
that would
like
do that. Like, you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, but
so
also
I
in
don't
that
know,
moment, I'm like,
but then he never addressed that it was an accident.
no,
Like
he
he never
didn't.
said I didn't mean to.
No, he didn't. But like, also maybe he and his thoughts didn't really see it as an accident. Like, my thoughts are he's reacting exactly how a Jedi probably should in that moment. Like, you're about to attack me. Yes, I'm going to, do that. Um, yeah, I don't. Hard to say. I mean, again, I just feel like saying any more on that would be me fixing the writing for them. It's not clear.
Yeah.
It's not made clear. And so the reveal, this last piece I do want to say, they do the famous he must choose one side or the other. Soul's got to save May or
Yeah.
Osha on the side. I'm like, or you could just force them both since you're clearly trying to force the bridge and not the two kids. Just pick them both up, bring them over. No, I have to choose one. I choose Osha. Okay, well, there you go. There's the other thing.
Here's another thing that's like
Turn him into the council.
Here's the other thing that's just weirdly like stupid with the rules of the Force.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can like we saw like we've seen how many examples of people like lift things that are 10 tons with like ease, and he can't hold up these two 70-pound toddlers.
Yeah,
100-pound 8-year-olds. Like I don't even know. Like he can't. Like he's like almost dying.
Yeah,
from
rage and
holding the
serenity.
Force up, and it's like, dude, it's like Luke Skywalker lifted up his ship out of the swamps of Dagobah.
Yeah.
With his mind. Like
what are we
like,
doing
what are
here?
we doing?
Yeah, and again, it's
like you can't tell me that those two things are that heavy.
Well, no, and I again to put another piece of explanation in there, it's like maybe some Jedi are better with the Force than others. I get that, totally get that, and I mean we've seen this isn't canon, but like in the Force Unleashed, like the character in that game brings down a Star Destroyer with the Force. Like they've since uncanonized that because I'm like, yeah, that's ridiculous. Like obviously, like no one can probably do that, but. That just seemed like another little piece of plot point that I wanted to acknowledge. So we get into the finale, and I'd like you to talk about the fight scene you're referring to that you really liked in it, because we had these kind of dueling fight scenes. You had Osha and May obviously going at each other, and you had Soul and Kymir going at each other. At the same time.
We can skip to that for So
feel free to go back to anything too. I just want to get to that.
Well, what I just was referencing though was that like the main scene that I was talking about was when they get there and all of a sudden Kymir's just behind Soul and then they start fighting. The scene when like they're on the bridge thing and then they jump down into that main I guess what would you like circle area where the All Mother was killed.
Yep.
earlier.
The arena.
And the arena, whatever you want to call
Yep.
it. And then so it's like slow motion. They're like falling back, and then like Soul's using the force to dodge him, get out of the way. I just thought it was filmed really, really well and really intricately.
I
And
think
then there was
I think all $180 million went into that scene.
yeah, pretty probably.
Just throwing it out there.
And then
The budget of this is ridiculous.
You have May and Osha fighting each other, and then I was blown away when I saw this because it was super cool to see in Star Wars. You had Osha and May fighting, and then like their crossed, I think it was their legs, like became the lightsabers of Chimera and Soul.
Oh
like,
yeah, that
like
was
the transition.
Cool.
Like
Yeah.
I thought that was I just thought that I think that the editing and the cinematography and the directing is like carrying the show and making it like they put all of the budget just into making it look cool. And then like the writers were like interns getting paid $10 an hour.
Yeah, the writers were during the strike. Who do we have who do we have in the lobby? Yeah, come on in.
No, I feel bad. I don't mean to insult anybody on the show.
I agree.
It's just you make a show, you think you like it. It's just I just don't think that the writers like know Star Wars enough to make something that is actually like cohesive with the universe. And I don't know that for sure, but I know that like was it Leslie Headland, I think is her name.
Yeah.
I know she's not like in that world. And so I don't think anybody on her show, writing wise, would like be as much of a Star Wars nerd as like Dave Filoni to be able to like intricately say this does not make sense.
Well, right.
We've never done this before, and people will be confused because this is not a thing people can do with the Force.
Well, and the main writer and showrunner of Andor actively really was not a Star Wars fan. Like he actually didn't love Star Wars that much. And that show is written impeccably. And what was the biggest thing people said about that show? This doesn't feel like Star Wars, which people said in a positive way.
Which works on a show like Andor because
that's where I'm going. Like it works on a show like Andor because it is a grounded story about people without superpowers in the Star Wars universe. I mean, at its core, it's about a group of people who is heavily oppressed by an empire that will take you out with impunity. Okay, it works at that level. I do think you need some folks like Filoni on a project like this when it comes to the I hate to sound like callous when I say this, but when it comes to the space wizards aspect of the Star Wars universe, you need some folks who have done a really good job in continuity of the Force, like Filoni, like Favreau, who know kind of and folks who have been tutelaged under them, so to speak. Not specifically them, but people who get it like them, you know.
Well, I mean, it's like Filoni is like essentially the Star Wars lore like child of George Lucas, and the fact that like his whole time on the Clone Wars show with George, like George made sure he understood everything that he was trying to do with getting stuff across as far as lore goes.
Sure.
And so that's why we talked about it before on the last episode, but we talked about like timing of like why Filoni wasn't really involved in this. And I think if this was made now, he would, and there would be a lot different creative decisions being made.
Or he would have at least been consulted by the writer's room, right? Plot structure.
I don't know it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Say.
But he didn't have as much of a he didn't have as much power as he does now.
Right.
Because because he just got promoted and like in the last year.
Yeah.
And so everything was already done,
right,
and made at that
getting
point.
Back to the actual meat of the story, just some things I want to kind of touch on. By the end, obviously the big thing is Osha has a full turn to the dark side once it's revealed, Soul killed their mom. Kind of realizing that like he was really the source of a lot of her pain, which I don't really agree with. Like May still very much is the reason a lot of folks died, but whatever. But it's revealed kind of that this darkness has been absolutely possible for Moshe, hence why she never went through fully with the Jedi training. She was never going to pass it. They've shown it in a video game. I think one of the ones we talked about before, but for the first time on screen, we really get to see an actual kyber crystal being bled to turn red. That was cool because I was even explaining to my mom and some other folks of like, there's a reason why it's red for Sith folks, and I had to kind of explain like the kyber crystal and what you do to it. That make that's how that happens. And in a Jedi Survivor, there's another moment where you kind of see it as well. And I was like, oh wow, I've never seen that on screen before, but I thought that was cool. I don't like that. Like
I thought it was cool how you could like see like the lightsaber like turning. It was like a quarter still blue, and then it was slowly just getting more and more red.
More red. You could see the temperature rising of the anger, right? And that was something. I will say, I will add that my interest in this show quite literally dies with Soul. And I'll get to that in a moment. But I will say that by the end of it, Chimere is probably the second best interesting character because I cannot emphasize this enough, and I don't necessarily blame actors or any one person. I do not much care for Osha or May as characters by the end of this. In a show that did neither of their characters any favors by switching their motivations seemingly per scene, literally per moment they were on screen. I just felt like the lack of the most interesting part about the two of them is the fact that it's revealed that they're the same person split in two. But in actual life circumstances, they're twins. They're still two different people.
Well, so
like
what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like they're like them saying they're the same person, but there's two of them. Okay, like they don't feel each other's pain. They don't know what each other's thinking.
Exactly.
So they're not the same person.
What you're describing is a far more interesting series.
like what you're describing is an identical twin.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, okay, so they're identical twins.
I don't understand. Like, okay, so they're clones. Like, okay, but like that doesn't.
Right. And before I get into the big lore breaking thing, it does say something, Casen, that I have it written down here. The most interesting thing that happened in this entire 6-hour saga was the glimpse of what is definitely Darth Plagueis in the cave. That was the most interesting thing that happened in this entire thing. And I'm like, you could have just had me not watch any of this, and then I could have just seen that scene. And I've been like, okay.
Yes. So we can get into that later. But did you get a chance to see Jeremy John's video on the finale?
I sure did.
Yeah.
So, which is a YouTuber that you know about because of me. I want to put that out.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a very good movie critic on YouTube.
So he made a very excellent point, is that the show would have been much better if it was just about Chimere.
Yeah. If he was the lead character.
Because it's revealed that Chimere was the Green Lady's apprentice. The Green Lady's Padawan at one point in time, and then he turned evil. And so that would have been a much better show, is you start with her training Chimere, and then he goes all Ben Solo and tries to kill everybody. And he ends up finding Darth Plagueis or something, and then they end up like teaming up to try and rebuild,
being homies.
It would just be very, although
you can call it the Acolyte.
Do we know that Plagueis, or that he knows Plagueis is there? I mean, I don't know.
No idea. It doesn't.
Plagueis could be hiding there. We don't know. But either way, it's assumed then that, or insinuated that this is where he learned how to make Anakin. Is that these two twins, whatever you want to call them, are the, I guess, pilot of the dark side magic force that was used on Shmi.
Yeah, and that's very accurate. And ultimately, we're in a situation where some stuff's left for a season 2, which I'll get to that in a moment. But there's the moment where they're saying goodbye to each other, and it's like, okay, we're cool now. Osha's gonna go and be with Chimere training wise, and then Chimere says, I have an ability where I can wipe your memory with the Force. I can wipe all knowledge of myself and Osha from your line of thinking. And then amazingly, he does it while they're still having a moment hugging, which I kind of was like, that's unbelievable, but okay. It's like, why would you? They clearly weren't ready for it. Okay, well, whatever. They're still hugging, having a moment, and then he just does it, and it's like, okay, yeah, I guess We got to wrap this up. I'm with Kymir. Let's wrap this up. Let's get this done with. That is such a complete lore and shattering force ability that you could have done this at the beginning of the show. I can't believe what we just saw. Like the ability to just wipe memory like that.
So here's the thing.
That
I
breaks
actually
so many things.
I actually disagree with you.
Do you?
Only because we've seen like the Jedi mind trick, like we've seen that as a thing, and so it's definitely like it's not a huge leap to go from like implanting thoughts into your brain to removing it's not a huge leap. Like it's showing a dark side power that Jedis don't have or don't use or whatever, and so it's expanding on what the dark side can do that the Jedi don't do, and so
can do,
and so because we've seen the mind trick and stuff, it's not like a huge leap. Like it's and we haven't seen enough Sith like on screen time to see really like any time they would use it. So like it definitely makes sense that they would, because anybody that would see them, they don't want them getting like, they don't want known that they're a Sith, so they can wipe minds to keep their awareness, or to keep people.
He should have just wiped Osha's mind when they were at the like island or whatever together, and then just started training her then.
Yeah, you would think.
I mean, I just think that there's so many moments where it's like, well, you just introduced an ability like that.
It's definitely like an OP plot hole of like, why didn't you do this?
Yeah,
10 days ago.
There are several moments in this show where you could have definitely done this. You could have wiped that. You could have wiped all the Jedi's minds that night you got revealed, or like in the spice area where no one for some reason could detect you. Before we knew you were definitely the bad guy. I don't know. I had it written down here. I'm like, ability that breaks storytelling, the mind wipe.
It definitely does do that. It definitely breaks the storytelling.
It breaks a lot
of like, why did this not happen? Like, why didn't you just wipe the mind of everybody that saw May kill Indara, and then the whole show wouldn't exist?
Yeah, yes, and I don't know. It just that, and also it's implied that he wiped all of her memory literally from age 8 years old. So I'm like, I don't know where any of this goes. And then we closed it up, and it's funny because I did have this theory. I'm like, they're going to show like Yoda or something at the end of this, and then they do. Obviously, they show the back of his head, but yeah, I mean this,
which yes, I mean it was just the biggest like, you've stuck with us this long. Here's some crumbs, Star Wars fans.
Yeah,
here's some crumbs.
Star Wars fans. Hey, here's some nostalgia for you. And I'm like, well, who makes the most sense to show Yoda? Because he would be on the council, because he's been on the council for like 1,000 years or something. Listen, I've gone through everything I had written down here. I mean, this show wasn't good. The
only other thing I want to at least address,
sure,
as like, this is a stupid like thing that occurred, was they cut back to the cave on that island with Osha and Kymir, and Osha's like wearing his helmet, and then she like starts to die, and he like is like, and his mind goes weird, and like he struggles to get the helmet off of her. And I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, so this helmet now has magical properties that is possessed and can kill the person that is wearing it.
Well, I get what you mean. Like, for me, it almost seems like it triggered her witch abilities, because that's what, the witches could do to like Torben earlier on. A lot of this show's writing and plot design is around this whole idea. Again, this whole idea of mystery boxes. Let's just throw a bunch of interesting Force stuff out there and just never explain any of it. And none of it's going to get explained. And that's why I've heard more with this series than arguably anything Disney's put out besides the actual films, the sequel trilogy, of fans having to fill in the gaps because of how poorly written the actual show, the actual content is. And if not poorly written, poorly planned. You know what I mean? And I just think to myself, okay, it's enough now. Like I'm not spending too much time thinking about that cool thing when legitimately it's never going to be explained how any of that makes any sense to this, other than it's an interesting Force thing. Let's just show another piece that dangles something in front of them. Like to me, that again, the whole Chekhov's gun thing. You know, don't present things to me that have no meaning. Don't waste my time.
Well, I mean, I will say though, I didn't even think about that. That like, so Osha being like a Sith witch is
Yeah.
like a really interesting concept,
Yeah.
and like she's gonna be like incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
Like in a season 3, she's gonna decimate the order, and it's gonna be incredible.
Well,
Um,
again, you're implying someone is so powerful that whatever was going to befall the Jedi should have happened way earlier. Like, I'll tell you who I liked the most in this whole arguably show in terms of a dialogue piece. That one senator who talks to the Green Jedi
yeah,
Master, who literally says
yeah.
everything wrong with the Jedi directly to her in a completely justified way.
He reads a synopsis of the prequels and is like,
Yeah,
hey.
you read the synopsis of the prequels.
Somebody's gonna make one of you guys really evil, and you guys are gonna be screwed.
You guys are going to be very undone by your own practices. I mean, legit. What? Who's to say one of you can just go completely unhinged? Because you guys are a group of people that is acting holier than thou when you're like just as flawed as everybody else. And I think that's the idea of where, at least the High Republic, they've shown, at least in this show. I can't say all Jedi, but the Jedi are always supposed to be a force for good, and there's so much selfishness shown in this era of the Jedi to the point where I'm like, yeah, there really are no great characters here. I mean, maybe that's the point of the show. It's all shades of gray. Maybe that's the point.
I mean, that's generally the
I mean,
entire
I
point of
walked
Star
away
Wars.
feeling that way. I'm like,
Like,
everything's
yeah.
shades of gray. I mean, I get that. I mean, as a fan of Fallout, it's always shades of gray. Okay. There's always things you got to do for the greater good, which was the whole thing of the whole idea of Soul's character and all that thing. I don't know necessarily what the legacy of the show is going to be, because I don't know if this gets a season 2 or not. I would think that it was so attention grabbing for the internet that it will. I don't necessarily know how to feel about that, other than that I probably really will not be excited to talk about it. But if it gives me something to just destroy on the show again, we're talking to you.
I would be excited for a season 2 with like a completely different showrunner, and
Just show me Kanye stuff.
Yeah, like I would be excited for a season 2 that is like completely structured differently, that's like run by like somebody like Filoni, and it like actually it goes back and explains a lot of the questions that were just left unanswered. That
like,
would be nice.
I will shout out Jeremy Johnson saying this. You know what's a great recipe for season 2? Having a good season 1. And they didn't have a good season 1, in my opinion. Because you know, the plots they set up, none of them I'm interested in, because they took out my favorite character in the show, and now I'm following a secondary thing. So
I was
hope this
surprised.
doesn't. Shout out to Lee Jung-jae, because he had to learn English for this show. And
yeah, I was a
for what he
little
was given,
surprised
I thought
that they did that,
well.
because
Yeah.
he was like one of the bigger names attached to the show, and they just like killed him. I was like, okay.
Yeah. I thought there was a good chance that he would not make it out of this season, because quite frankly, he probably does want to do more Squid Game stuff and cares more about that, but dabbles into Star Wars a little bit, you know. But and the way the plot was going, I figured that actually makes sense if he's the one to not make it out of the show. That being said, I don't know. Let's rate this out of 10. I really do think we need to come up with a Star Wars rating system, sort of like how we have the 4-tier rating system for Marvel projects. We'll have to do that another time, because we got to rate this up. Out of 10, what do you give this whole series now that it's all said and done?
I'll give it a 5. I'll give it a 5.
Right average?
Yeah, I mean I liked, yeah, I mean I liked some of the visuals and some of the concepts and ideas that it introduced. And then I just don't think a lot of it was executed well.
That's
but
fair.
I will say though, I mean, hats off to Amandla Stenberg. I mean, acting with yourself isn't easy, and so
I didn't realize that until like episode 7, by the way, that she was both characters.
Yeah, I mean, at least like that's a tough thing to do, and I don't know how you like frequently have conversations with yourself,
because like you're probably talking back and forth with somebody else, and then you have to go and change and do the same thing in the other person. So it's a chore, and so
Right. And
kudos to at least trying to do that.
at least in this situation, she was in a situation where both characters on a base personality level weren't really that different. Where, I mean, I forget what the movie or show is, but Paul Rudd is playing two completely different versions of himself, and he's acting with himself. And because I just remember he talked about that on Hot Ones. This, oh man, I really don't like giving bad reviews, but I got to be honest, this is probably a 3 out of 10 for me. The whole thing. Again, I was harsher on Ahsoka. I've generally been harsher on Star Wars projects than you are, just because I think so much that they should be able to do better, especially when you pay $4 billion for this franchise and come out with mostly bad content in the years you've had it, where you botch an entire trilogy to the point where it decimates the franchise. I mean, I even say to folks, Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi ruined the entire franchise. Like, if you like, you might disagree out there, and I apologize if that's your favorite Star Wars movie or whatever, but the problems with this whole franchise that Disney's have all stem back to that movie, because I think of where the hype and where the franchise was going into that film and where it's been since. And I will go as far as to say this is probably my second or third least favorite project in the entire Disney run of Star Wars. I'm not going to rank them right now, but I mean, the Acolyte's down there. Solo's awful, I think. As a movie, that's so boring. It's not a very good movie. And then The Rise of Skywalker and The Last Jedi both are just dreadful to me. So and to be fair, The Rise of Skywalker was going to be because of that previous movie. So that, what are you to do? I don't think it's any one person's fault where things are. I also don't want to necessarily, I'm not trying to pass blame here or whatever. I just think that as someone who is less of a fan of Star Wars as you, but still is a very big fan of the storytelling elements that have always been here, going back to the original trilogy, we as fans deserve better than this show. And if you're going to tell a story like this, don't ruin some of the cool things you could have done with this plot stuff with just really dreadful execution. I agree. Yeah, that's what I got. That's why if you come across this and you had anything to do with this show, I'm sorry, but I have a feeling, Casen, that I not have a feeling, people out there on the internet have been way harsher than we've been.
Yeah, I mean, comparatively, we've been pretty fair. Yeah,
we're pretty tame.
Yeah.
I mean, I also will say this. I will end on a positive note. I agree with pretty much everything you've said about the choreography in the show. That being said, like I feel like I could have seen like a few really cool fan made fights with lightsabers and stuff on YouTube that are like 3 minutes, rather than like having to see them across an entire $180 million eight episode Disney Plus.
Yeah. I mean, if that's definitely the question of like, where did the $180 million go? Because this does not look like it cost $180 million.
So much money. Just so much money.
Was it just $100 million in rent for the volume? Like, is that what we were doing?
Well, and I bet if we saw a breakdown, we could probably figure that out, because it's not like there's like a loaded amount of huge names in this, right?
I mean, it's assumed that the highest paid person is Amandla, which interesting.
I mean, Lee Jung-jae was a big name coming in there. The rest, though, I mean, fairly unknown. So I don't know. Who's the actress? The one thing I will say here, just because the cast is in front of me, just want to. No, it's not her. One of the actresses who was one of the Jedi was Trinity in The Matrix.
Carrie-Anne Moss. And Dara, right?
Yep, Carrie-Anne Moss. But and that was cool, but like not quite at the level she was in the Matrix days. So I don't know. I mean, I was wondering that, but
I thought she looked familiar.
That's Carrie-Anne Moss. That's Trinity from The Matrix. Shout out. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, inflation's weird. Yeah, a lot of the times I think we see budget and we think like it's got to have gone somewhere. I mean, we sat and wondered where the budget went for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny until I saw literally the last 45 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there it is. There it is. I kept waiting for like, hey, there's the budget.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it makes sense. They probably just spent so much money on like the graphics for like the scenes
and the sets,
like the sets and stuff, which
but it
just
didn't feel
doesn't
like they heavily marketed this,
it
like to
doesn't
the
need to
point
be
where
done.
sometimes a lot of budget goes to just marketing and stuff,
Yeah.
and it didn't feel like they did that. I don't know, but regardless,
Which I mean they
that's all I
probably didn't
got.
market it super heavily on purpose because they knew what they had and they knew. I mean,
Is the June into July slot on Disney Plus just slated for whatever the worst project anyone has is now? Like,
yeah.
is that's
So
2 years in a row that we have?
let me give you a PSA to any actors or actresses working on a
Oh
Marvel
no!
project.
Oh
If your
no!
project is slated to come out in like June or July, they know that your show is going to be terrible.
Yeah, they are positioning you very much like the reason Hollywood comes out with certain movies in January. We know what we have, and we are trying to cut our losses. Okay, we just need something to put on Disney Plus. But that's 2 years in a row now. Where like 2 mediocre series in 2 different franchises, mind you, and one way worse than the other. I think.
Yeah, just
come
hit like
out. Disney
yeah,
Plus.
in just the middle of the summer.
Yeah.
Which it's an interesting it's an interesting like comparison though, because Star Wars just kind of tries to bury it because they like didn't really push it that much. But meanwhile, Marvel was like putting it on Hulu and they were like,
Oh
come
yeah.
watch this show. This is the greatest show. And they were like, it's gonna win an Emmy. It's like, what are you talking
and
about?
I think it was even you that a year ago was like, it's bad when they're pushing it on Hulu because it's like no one's watching it. or the word of
Yeah.
mouth is not traveling very well. Oh man. But that's it. That's all I got on the Acolyte. I'll be here to watch season 2 if you force me to do that, Casen. If they get one. I'm not going to sit here and say that this is where Star Wars is as a whole. The next project in Star Wars could be great. Great, fantastic. I mean, the I don't necessarily know what's next, but I just think that this is one that fell flat. I'll be here to watch probably more of the next, but I would take many more seasons of Ahsoka exactly the way it was in my interest before I would watch this again. It's probably really harsh for some people to hear. Kellan's like, wow, Kellan hates both shows. I mean, I only hated one of them. I just disliked the other. I just felt I was just bored during the other one.
Fair.
Anyway, there were times during this where I was entertained at how bad it was. Anyway, like The Room, like I said a week ago.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago. But that's the show. That's the show, y'all. We will most likely we're not going to have a show next week because of circumstances with myself. The week after, it's very likely, Casen, that'll be our Deadpool Wolverine review show.
Probably, yeah.
May or may not have to bring in someone from that, barring we can. That's going to be a really big event, and that's what's next in what's been a really fun month personally for me so far in life. Some that I've revealed on here, some I haven't. So, any closing thoughts?
No, I mean I'm gonna go play college football 25. So
I'm gonna do the same thing. I gotta like figure out dinner here, but I'm gonna do the same thing. So thank you everyone so much for watching, listening, and contributing to our conversation. And this is Kellan.
This is Casen.
And we'll see you as always at the next stop.